Hi everyone. How's it going?
So as I said, this season, this show is fantastic. I watch a lot of stuff, but I was watching the show going like, oh God, this show is amazing. But this is really unique for you because you did 3 seasons of another show called Daredevil.
Yeah.
Took a break of like 5 or 6 years, and then you come back for Born Again. So what was that break like for you when it came time to be born again as Matt Murdock on Daredevil?
Yeah, I mean, look, when for me, when the show, the original show was cancelled, I immediately just made peace with that. It was over. It was done. And over the course of those years, you know, Vincent D'Onofrio plays Fisk, such an incredible actor. You know, we would speak. Right, please, yeah. We would talk on the phone, and he would say to me, they're going to bring us back. We're going to do something. And I would get off the phone and I'd say to my wife, the guy's delusional. Like, it's over. It's years have gone by, you know. To be honest, that phone call was very surreal. I never saw it coming. And I'm still kind of pinching myself that it happened and that we came back and we did the show and we're making another season right now. It's kind of, they're still allowing me to do it, you know?
Yeah, I'm just going to say, yes, so let's not bury the lead here. He's filming season 2 as we speak. So when you look at the 3 seasons of the original show and the brand new season of Born Again, like, how did your approach to playing Matt Murdock differ? Like, what was different about it than when you played him the first time around?
Well, it's the same character, it's the same human, but you know, we are so radically changed by our circumstances and by our experiences, and then that you put that into the world of the superhero genre, if such a thing exists, and everything is exaggerated a little bit, you know. The awful thing that happens in Born Again, that was the gift for me as the actor, was the death of Foggy. So, I mean, tragic in terms of the show loses an element that I think was like the heartbeat of Daredevil in the world. But it was kind of, if you're going to come back and you're going to make a new show, having already done 3 seasons, you've already had a lot of material. You do need to shake things up a bit. You need to come back with a bang. And with our show in particular, I always say that you need to make sure the audience feel unsafe, that nothing is sacred. Anything can happen at any time. Otherwise, the stakes don't really mean anything. But in terms of playing Matt Murdock, I think at the end of this journey, whenever it does come to an end, there'll be before Foggy's death and after Foggy's death.
Sure.
You know, the death of Foggy is. I don't know, and I'm not as well versed in the Marvel universe as people might think, but I don't know that there's many characters that have such an iconic best friend. So
that's a really good point.
Yeah, you know.
But you know what, Charlie? The great thing about Daredevil and Daredevil Born Again is you don't have to be immersed in the MCU of it all, the movies or the shows. As great as they are, and I've seen them all, and I love that stuff. And I grew up, I'm a Gen X comic book fan. I still have all my Daredevils that were written by Frank Miller and Carl Jansen. I still have all that stuff in mint condition in my backing boards. Anyway. But
show off.
But yeah, but what I love about the show, about Born Again especially, is just how grounded it is, how psychological it is, how romantic it is, and not superhero-ish of it all. Like, was that exhilarating for you to play a hero, if you will, that was so grounded in reality?
Yeah, and I think, as I've got to know the source material, obviously, but at this point I've read probably every Daredevil comic that exists. You see very quickly that it is a part of in the essence of that character. So I think it was vital to make this show that it felt grounded and it felt adult and it felt brutal. My favorite, and I think a lot of people's favorite Daredevil comics, are the ones where it is geared towards a slightly more mature audience, and it is sinister at times and morally dubious. And I think the character works best in that environment, and the show works best in that environment.
When you were gearing up to play Matt Murdock again for the first time in years, it's the first time you're playing him since basically the entire world had changed. And did that give you confidence because you were already sort of familiar with that world and had done it for 3 years? Or were you skeptical because they are taking some big swings here? I'm not so sure about this.
I don't know if I'm ever sure about anything. I'm always, and I'm not afraid of that, actually. I don't know. I think that's probably quite a good thing. I'm always in awe of people who are very clear-minded about something. I don't feel that way. I always feel like I can believe something on the one hand, and then I have one conversation with someone who completely convinces me of the opposite, and so I'm never completely sure. And so, I mean, when the show ended, initially, obviously I was sad about that, and it, the next few years of your life look suddenly quite different potentially, and you're back out trying to get a job, out there on the circuit auditioning, trying to get at your next job. But I was also happy that, in a way, because we ended on such a high.
Oh yeah.
So to come back, you're right. It was a big. There was no way I was going to say no. It was like the best job I've ever had, and I couldn't wait to come back. And I trust Marvel to go above and beyond to make it what we wanted it to be, which they did. Amongst a lot of adversity, which obviously some people know about in terms of the direction in which the show went, and then there was a bit of a U-turn in production and all that kind of stuff. But I'm never sure is the short answer to that question, and I really I try so hard to focus on I just think actor is a small cog in a very big machine, and you just have to run as best you can, do the best just do your job as well as you can.
When the season, this season, the Born Again season, started to film, and then it was basically overhauled. Like, how did that affect your performance?
I think weirdly, in the end, it kind of freed me up a little bit,
right,
because, which was unexpected, and I wonder if that will be something that I will take into projects going forward. I prepare a lot. I'm one of those actors who spends a lot of time in preparation, and I do a lot of reading. And I read the scripts over and over and over again, like the same scripts over and over and over again, until I get the idea being that I read somewhere once that Anthony Hopkins is one of my favorite actors, reads the scripts. What I read was 200 times he reads the scripts, right? And I remember thinking, like, what's that about? What's the point of that? And I don't know. I'd love to ask him one day. But
maybe he's watching.
Yeah. But what I imagine is that at some point, if you keep reading it, you start to see the story in a much simpler way than you're not seeing plot anymore. You're not reading plot anymore. You're not reading story. You're really starting to see very simple kind of ideas and themes, and then and then you hopefully, when you then play the scenes, that stuff which is really at the core of the show, the core of the story, is present, and I think that's more interesting to watch than plot.
So in terms of rereading the scripts and over again, is that how you actually remember your lines?
Yeah, so I never learn lines. I don't remember, other than when I've done like classical theatre or something. I'd never learn lines, because I've read them so many times. I know them.
Wow.
Yeah, and actually that's been like a kind of a byproduct, I think, of the reading is just because I'm trying to do this thing where I want to get to the point where I know it in my heart, not just my head, But as a result, I don't learn lines. And what's great about that is I've never said the lines out loud until I'm on set. So I haven't rehearsed saying it in any way, and that's almost like a kind of a cool byproduct sometimes of the reading.
Everyone has a different process in which they remember their lines before they even get into the performance of it all. It's like you got to remember the lines first, and that's a first. I never really heard that before. But watching this first episode of Born Again, I mean, there's so many great scenes, so many great moments. My favorite actually is the scene between you and Vincent, between Matt and Fisk at the diner. Because you never know who's got the upper hand, even after the conversation's over and that walks off. You still don't know. But what was it like filming that scene? Not just working with Vincent. But what was it like filming that scene in particular?
Well, a cool story about that scene is that the original iteration of that scene on the page was quite different. And was brilliant. Dario Scotopane, our showrunner and writer who wrote that, is really a genius actually, but that scene was quite different, and Vincent and I asked if we could come in and talk about it, and just see if we could kind of unpack it a little bit, knowing how it's the cornerstone of the season, and knowing that the likelihood is we're going to have that scene and maybe one more or two more in the whole season.
Sure.
And the thing that came out of that conversation quite early on was, I don't know, and I don't remember how we stumbled upon it, but it was, we know we've got this history. We know that there's a lot of fans who are coming back to the show, and they know how much these two people hate each other. And so what came out of that conversation quite quickly was, we think there should be a moment where they have been humbled by life, and there is humor in that. There is identification in that they can look at each other and recognize that neither one of them are 100% correct. Mm-hmm. And sometimes there's an irony to that. It's quite funny. And so we added this bit at the beginning where they make each other laugh. And the hope is, and I'm not an audience member so I don't know, but the hope is that that's so unexpected and ironically feels more dangerous.
That moment actually made me think like these guys actually respect each other and admire each other. Even if they hate each other,
right?
There's a respect, there's an admiration there. But when you're rehearsing, when you're preparing at home for a scene like that, and then you go to the set, and then there's Vincent across from you, and you're filming the scene. How does that bring something out of your performance that even you weren't expecting?
Well, so. It's always about. It's so boring to say. It's like you've heard it a million times. It's always just about listening, and that's not as easy as it sounds. It's everyone says acting is just about listening and react or whatever. But when you are on set and there's cameras, or whether you're on stage and there's an audience, and you've got your mind is busy, and you've got a million things on your mind, not just within the scene, outside of the scene as well. Really listening. Is not always that simple. You have to I have to remind myself, just listen. And then depending on who you're working with, what you experience, it can be radically different. And when you're working with someone like Vincent D'Onofrio, John Bernthal, I often will look at those scenes that, on the page they'd feel like this is a big day, but I'll look at those scenes and go, this is going to be easy, because I'm just going to listen to these guys, and I know that it's going to be so rich and so alive.
Right.
And as long as I'm listening, my involvement in the scene is going to be hopefully, it will hopefully be authentic, but also might be equally as interesting because there's so much there.
In terms of the physical challenges. Because, going back to the original show, those 3 seasons, there's an episode in the 3rd season that's like 11 or 12 minutes long, all one take. Incredible fight scene. How many times did you have to film that one?
That was rough. That I'm very proud of that scene, because when I got this job in 2014, the end of week 3, we did the first major fight scene, and there's very little of me in that. Like I was not able to do it. I was not there. That scene 3 seasons later having done a ton of work with the stunt team and a ton of training, most of that is me. And so I'm very proud of that. That was a rough couple of days. So the production actually took a day off of filming, which is a big call because that's a lot of money. You still have to pay everyone, but we didn't film a single thing on the day one. We just rehearsed all day with the camera team, with the stunt department in the prison. And then day two we started filming. And what was complicated is right before lunch we got the first full take, and it was good, and everyone was like, "Oh wow, that was really good." And it's, I think, 12 and a half, 13 minutes long. Yep. We went back and watched it, and there was this question of, do we go home? Like, is this a long weekend? Yeah. Or do we go to lunch and do it again? And the decision was, there's a couple of things we can get better. And I have to be honest, I was like, I don't know, guys, because there's a couple of things we can get better. There's also a couple of major injuries that we could accumulate, you know. But we went to lunch. We came back. We did 3 or 4 that didn't complete, and things went wrong. And then we did this take. Now, the thing that I remember about the take that made it into the show was, as you're doing every take, you learn something new. You figure out something you can do a little bit better. And I realized we do this thing in that sequence called a Texas switch. So it's all one take. There's no morphing. There's no stitching. It's a pure one take shot. And the way we handle that is there are moments where my character briefly exits frame and my stunt double my stunt double is hiding. Yeah. And then we switch back. And if you watch carefully, you might be able to figure out where they are. There's only about 2 exchanges. It's called a Texas switch. So it happens in camera. There's no cutting, right? I had noticed that there was a prisoner who was just like an extra. And in a moment where I come out, I was able to give him a vial of blood, fake blood. And I thought it'd be cool because when I get snatched by the big guard, the big Russian, I think. Yeah. When I get snatched, I thought it'd be cool because he throws me against the wall and I could spit some blood against the wall. So I gave this prisoner this blood and was like, when I grab it for you, give it to me, right? But I didn't tell anyone because I didn't need to. It was irrelevant. But I didn't tell the big, huge Russian guy that was going to happen.
Oh, jeez.
So I put this blood in my mouth, carried on the sequence, and in that sequence, once I get into the scene, the dialogue scene, the hard part is done. We just now got to see it through. Like all the mistakes were happening in that first 7 or 8 minutes, and it's designed that way so that if you mess up, you hopefully aren't going to mess up in the last 2 minutes. You're going to mess up early, right. And so you can start again, right? Anyway, sorry, very long-winded story, but what happened in that final take is he threw me against the wall. I spit the blood out. He thought he did that to me. Right? So I hear him go like that. And then off camera, you hear, just behind the camera, I think there's another Russian guy, and his first line is, "What is your name and why are you looking for me?" But it's off camera. So he says the line and then the camera slowly pans to him. But he was so shocked. As the blood came out, he went, "What? What's my line? What's my line?" And just in time, someone goes, "Who are you? What's your name?" And he then, as the camera got to his face, he went, "Who are you and what is your name?" Yeah. And so they were able to edit out him saying, "What's my line?" Because it wasn't on camera. It was just audio. Anyway, but I remember as I'm being pushed there and I'm sweating. I've been doing it all day and I feel beaten up and the blood's everywhere. I'm thinking, don't forget your line. Don't forget your line.
What do you do when you're doing a scene? Because this episode we just saw has a long take at the beginning of the episode, and you're doing it and it's going great and everybody's in the groove and we're going to knock this out of the park, and then somebody messes something.
Well, so that's a different example. That's what they call a non-true oneer. So on camera it plays like a oneer. It's all one. It looks like one take, but actually it's stitched together. So there's moments where the camera will move and there'll be a very brief second where it like pans over a wall, and for a minute the entire screen is black or grey. And then so as soon as that pan happens, then the shot is over, and then they start the next shot on the grey wall or on the black wall. And then they can edit it together. And it's called morphing it together or stitching it together, so you would never know. But it plays like a oneer, but it's not a true oneer.
Matt Murdock, as the other three seasons from the first show, and especially in Born Again, it is physically grueling and emotionally grueling. So how do you get into character? And even more importantly, when the day is done or the season is done, how do you get out of character?
I'm not sure my wife would agree that I do get out of character. Always. So look, the interesting thing about that is sometimes I feel with a TV show, one of the things I've learned about doing a television show now over many years, and I had a bit of an experience with it on Boardwalk Empire, is that when you first get the job, it's about finding discovering who this character is, and kind of trying to feel those feelings and embody that character, whatever that means to you. When you get into like season 3 or 4, it's actually about getting like there's a pull sometimes to. You get to know that character so well that you almost feel like you're not doing anything anymore. And then there's a danger of doing too much, like adding to it, so that you feel like the character that you invented all those years ago. And so one of the things that I really try, and I see that occasionally. I do see occasionally the performances over the years on television get bigger and bigger and bigger. And so one of the things that I really try to focus on is like making sure that I'm bringing it back, pulling it back towards something because now the character feels so natural to me. There's not really anything to turn on. It's just about, as soon as I put on the glasses or start speaking in that voice, it's there. And so it's more about just always making sure that it feels honest.
We get questions submitted by our SAG-AFTRA members here. So Christina F., if you're here, our question. Oh, hi, Christina F. So Christina F.'s question is, what is your physical preparation like for Daredevil? And do you practice any kind of martial arts to get ready?
The thing has been in the last couple of years has been vital is mobility. I've had to do so much more mobility training because I started this character when I was 30 and I'm now in my 40s, and it's my body's not the same. It's like, so like those fight sequences are it takes me a lot longer to recover from them. But I've been doing a lot more kind of mobility work and functional training and stretching and stuff like that. I do some martial arts, and I focus on what they call it K1, which is mostly striking, because Daredevil doesn't tend to do. It's not as compelling on camera to do jiu-jitsu. It's more what people respond to is like the exciting visceral kicks and punches. So I've done some of that stuff, and I work with the stunt team to try and get as much form. I think of Matt Murdock as a bit of, like his dad, a bit of a brawler. So I'm okay if my form is not perfect. That might just be laziness. I don't know. There's a lot to think of with him. So and then it's one of the things that happens on a film set is they go, right, we need you in 10 minutes. You're like, great. So I start doing all my yoga and stretching and getting ready, and then 3 hours go by and they still haven't come to get you, and you're like, and then they're like, we need you now.
The other thing about doing series television, and this is especially true for shows that last a few seasons. So 2 questions. Like, one is, when did you start to feel that when it came to playing Matt Murdock, Daredevil, that you were starting to hit your stride in a way that you started to feel kind of an ownership to the character, where you could say to the producers, why don't we try this? Or, I don't know if Matt Murdock would say that or do that.
I've always felt that way, and Marvel have always made me feel that way. They've always, from day one, have been very generous with their kind of handing over of the character. I also know that the character is incredibly well protected by people who love him more than I do, probably. And so I know that they feel very comfortable saying no. That's not. But the filmmaking process it has to be so collaborative, and I've always felt like I can say, is this interesting? Should we try that? Does that work? Is that something we can look at? And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. And I don't know. I feel quite comfortable being wrong about that. Especially when working with directors that I know are. It's a thing about television that is very different from film. Is that you've got directors coming in every episode, and ironically, unlike in movies, the director often has the least information. On a movie, they often have the most information. They're the reason for the movie. And on television, sometimes they're brought in and they haven't been able to see what we've shot. They don't know, they haven't got the time. They're on scouts and location scouts, and they're prepping their episode, but they don't know what we shot. They don't know what that looks like. No one's seen that yet. They don't know what's coming. It's a bit difficult. But when you can trust a director, I feel on television, I feel like much freer to try things, knowing that if it's not right or inappropriate, it doesn't quite work, then it won't make it into the show.
At what point in your career did you start to feel like, I can do this for a living? I can act for a living.
I'm still waiting for that moment. I am. I don't know that you ever. I live in a kind of a weird, paradoxical world where I can feel like I deserve to be here, and I know what I'm doing, and I've earned my stripes, and also like a complete fraud. I walk off set sometimes and be like just feel disgraced, and I've also been around long enough to know that I can't put any stock in that either. No, I've done scenes. This happened recently. I just did I did a small part in this really cool TV show that is coming out called Adults on Hulu, right? And it's with these young, and I've just seen there's posters all over LA for it, and I was working with these relatively young actors, like young compared to me, and I've been doing this a long time, a lot longer than they have, but it's a completely different genre, and I was so out of my depth, I was really, and that was a good feeling. It was exhilarating. I felt really nervous because I haven't done a comedy like this, and I don't have that level of that. They were so brilliant at like coming up with ideas and improving and making stuff up, and I come from the world of Shakespeare or whatever, where you say the line you were given, and so that was really confronting and really challenging and fun. But it was like there was a scene in that where I walked off that day and was like, I was so unimpressed with myself. I felt so limited, like I just, and then I got to see the scene in ADR. And I'm really happy with it. It's great. It works. It's fine. It's good. It's fine. It's like, it's so not what in my head it was. But the only thing I'll say about that is over the years, I've just learned to use that as a superpower. It just, don't trust your own brain for a start. Let someone else tell you if it's working or not working. The only thing that's important is that you don't clam up, that you free up, that you feel like it's okay to be bad. Mm-hmm. An acting coach I work with in the UK once said to me, "Only the truly great can be truly awful." I think it's actually I think it's a Peter O'Toole quote actually. Only the truly great can be truly awful. Wow. And for me, one of the things I'd really try to do is give myself license to be truly awful.
Over the course of the 4 seasons now.
That's not an excuse. I don't know what it is.
Over the course of the...
See, if I do anything bad now, I'm like, because I'm great. No.
So 3 seasons and now a new season. What?
2 new seasons.
Well,
3 seasons and now a new one, and now another one.
You're doing the second one right now. What was the biggest takeaway? Has been the biggest takeaway for you as an actor? The biggest thing that you learned from playing Matt Murdock, Daredevil, over the course of these now going into 5 seasons?
From the character?
Yep.
Not from filming the show?
Yeah, from filming the show. The biggest takeaway for you as an actor that you're going to take with you no matter what you do on the big screen or the small screen?
I had a moment in a scene with Vincent D'Onofrio where people often say, especially as a younger actor, they say, when I was very lucky early on in my career. The 2 of my first movies were with Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, and people always say, "Oh wow, you must have learned so much," and I think you do. I think you take in stuff you don't even realize you're taking in. It's very rare that in a moment you're watching something and like, "Oh wow, I never even thought of that as a piece of technique or something. I don't know what it is." And I had that moment with Vincent in the scene in the second series of the show, where the nature of the scene was, I come in, I say my piece, and it was kind of a speech, and then he has a speech. So it wasn't a back and forth. It was more speechy, and then so we shot my side of the scene first, and we did it, and then he did his bit, and then we turned around onto him, and it required to go to a place, and of course, unlike in theatre, on screen, you do the scene, they change a light, they need to retouch your makeup, they need to redo the battery, there's a pause, there's time, you sit, you wait. Sometimes they're going to change a lens, they're going to come closer, and finding a rhythm, like drumming that, getting to that place in a scene that requires you to already be there, to come in like that is harder, right? So they turned around on Vincent and he said to the director, "Don't cut until I say. Whatever happens, don't cut. I'm gonna kind of go in and out a little bit, but you'll get everything you need." And he kind of started. He said the lines almost he almost started saying the lines like he was reading a book, and then he kind of went back to the beginning, and then he did 2 or 3 lines, and then he went back to the beginning again, didn't finish it that one, and then he got up and he went over into the side of the room and he hit the wall, and then he came back in and was in a rage from the beginning, right? And then he got to a point where it was explosive, and it was still going, and it's on and on, it's still going, and then he went back to the beginning and he said it so calmly, but he was buzzing, because he'd gone to the place and now all he had to do was say the lines. And it was a piece of film acting technique that I was like, wow, that is brilliant, and it's something that I've used, stolen,
steal it, whatever works,
a million times. And it's like remembering that in a film or television environment, it doesn't have to be linear. You just have to get these moments, and they can do all sorts of things with it.
Last question. So the 3 seasons of by the way, all 4 seasons, the 3 seasons of Daredevil and Daredevil Born Again, it's all on Disney Plus right now.
Don't do what my parents did and watch the old show mistakenly. They did. They watched the old show and they were like, it's quite similar to the.
That's why Born Again. What will it take for a Daredevil feature film?
Oh, I'm the worst person to ask. I have no idea. I don't know. I'm not. That's like you have to ask the grown-ups. I'm not. I don't know anything, and I like not knowing anything. I mean, the only thing I say is I'm just so I'm such a happy camper. I'm so thrilled to be here, and I love that I get to. That I get to tell the story in long form, and also because I'm part of the show, like you guys just had the experience. Every season we get to see the first 2 episodes on the big screen, so I get that experience, and it is a shame because particularly with that pilot, it's such a cinematic episode. It's that it feels like it deserves to be seen on the big screen. So, but I don't know, just kind of just write letters. Everyone just write letters.
Well, keep doing what you're doing. Once again, Daredevil Born Again, streaming on Disney Plus. Ladies and gentlemen, Charlie Cox.
Thank you.